Yeah, there you are. You're adorable. Hey, we're so excited about Deer Park. I've been hearing stuff behind the scenes about what you guys are. Yeah, other Texans are talking about you in the positive, which is awesome. Okay, so I made you presenter.
Uh,
Oh, we can hear you.
oh, okay. All right.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. So what do you see on my screen so far? Do you see my screen or?
Carrie, what we see on the screen is the Better Not Back to Normal Team Deer Park.
Okay, good. All right. So I will start. And do you see, let me swap probably.
I think you're good to go whenever you're ready.
Okay. I know it's a couple of minutes before 2, so I wasn't sure if we were ready to go or not. But
No, because I think what we're going to do with you is we're going to let you present, and then Lonnie or myself is going to do a little Q&A with you, depending on what you present, and just try and pull more data from you, if that's okay.
okay. All right. Good. As I was looking at Fort Sam Houston's their presentation, I was like, oh, theirs is so colorful and wonderful, and I'm so in the deep here. Mine is just kind of a little basic, but I'll tell you that I'm so proud of what we're doing here and what our teachers are doing. I have been in education, oh gosh, over 40 years. And I was a teacher for 13 and a half before I went into administration. I've been in Deer Park for about 21 years. And it's been an awesome experience. Some days it's tough, but some days it's great, and I'm so glad. So in case people don't know where we are, we're along the Houston Ship Channel. We're known for several things. We're used to disasters. Last year, between COVID and Harvey, and we had ITC fires. If you ever watched that in 2019, we were on the national news with, we're on the Ship Channel there with all the different plants. So we have about, right now we're having a tough time pinning down that enrollment, but we try to stay around 12,500. We're an open enrollment district. That means if you live close to the area and you want to apply to come, then we do allow that. We have about 1,800 employees, and we're in 16 campuses and are about almost 47% economically disadvantaged. So before COVID even happened, we had already been going down the way of one-to-one. We started in 2015 and we just kind of rolled it out. But basically we had computers in classrooms, or we also had iPads in classrooms everywhere, pretty close to one-to-one all the way pre-K through 12, but not totally. And definitely one-to-one from 5th grade up. And then we had some hotspots we could check out to people if they needed them. External access points were in all our secondary, and then we increased it. And we had a learning management system for our 5th through 12th, and we were Office and used ClassLink and had over 200 apps, just tons of resources. And we're very blessed in Deer Park to have that. And then, of course, COVID hit in spring of 2020, and we went into that mode of planning for that remote learning. And I'll never forget, in our first meeting, we're sitting there and one of my staff members went, "I've been training my whole life for this." And we cracked up and went, you know what? We've been along this path and we've had a vision, but we didn't know that it was going to manifest itself in this way. I mean, this is not how we wanted it to manifest, but all of a sudden now we're ramping up. And the goals we had for our teachers, through our professional development and just goals of getting them more comfortable with utilizing all those tools, rich tools. So we had an iPad pickup for those kids that in our elementary that really didn't have them at home, but the others did, and our remote learning began. And then we went through all the way through May 26, and then had to collect all those iPads back up when we could, so that we could refresh them and get ready for the school year coming up. So you can see this was our drive-by. at that point, we weren't really in a mandate of wearing masks. Now we are, and that's my superintendent at that time. Since then, I don't know if the COVID encouraged him to retire, or I think it was really in his plan, but we now have another one. But you can see cars are lined up and they're ready, and we're trying to check out iPads to them. And we did that again this fall too. So, but that instruction that happened was, okay, what can we do? And so we just had a modified instruction time at that time, where we did 2 to 3 hours a week for each core, a week for our PE and electives. And our teachers were required to constantly try to make contact with the students and parents, because we knew that was vital. We worked with our STAR teachers, our Department of Instruction did, and to create their content, because we just felt like that was a hard load to put on teachers. So let's let our STAR teachers create that week at a glance, and the content that could go into the learning management system. We had to modify our grading policy, and because we didn't know the situations. You know, we weren't in every home. We tried to be, you know, in some way, but we weren't there to know what was going on. What kind of support did they have during that time? Now, you see the logo Empower, and that's what our one-to-one program has, what we named it initially. And we're all about empowering our students and empowering our teachers. And because we know that if we empower our teachers, then we're going to have successful students. And so it's we're constantly in our department focused on that student and that teacher that's really all about our business. They're taking care of our clients and reaching out. So trying to help them make that switch. Because it was a learning curve for some of them. For some of them, they took to it and went right away with it, and they were working at home. So we had opportunities to grow, and we had to add another learning management system, and we had to acquire chargers for iPads that we didn't have, in hotspots. And, you know, what do you do about special testing, and now cell phones, so that they could get support that they needed, and apps for teachers to call parents without using their own devices. And, you know, what do you do about your Zoom and Teams? How do I do that? And we set up a homework helpline and a tech support line, and in those to make sure that they had those resources. We could help the parents and the students and our teachers all at the same time. Now, I never stopped working. While everybody else in the district went home, some of the upper level management, we still came in. I came in every day, and I had a staff that I would rotate here at our technology building, so that they could answer the phones and the email that was coming in and the walk-ins that needed assistance. But we still went on. A lot of my staff stayed home, but we would rotate who would come in and help it. And a big thing was professional development. All of a sudden now, we had teachers really wanting those things that we had been providing in multiple ways, and working with them to integrate. Now they were forced to do it. So we were having to provide instruction on SeeSaw, which was new for our teachers. Some had been used to using it, and most of our teachers and students were used to using Canvas, and some parents. So we were constantly, okay, what kind of video can I make? What kind of instruction can I provide? Put it out there through our learning management system that we had. These people, I'm going to tell you, are why we are successful. I'm very fortunate to work in a school district that invests in people. They invest in people to help. They invest in people for professional development. We have what we call non-negotiables. When you come to work in Deer Park, there are certain non-negotiables, including pedagogy. There's some PD that before you even start, you're already initiated into getting that professional development that we need. And we have what's called an instructional technology academy that's to make you successful with teaching using technology. But all of these wonderful people there, we have a campus technology integration specialist on each campus, and we have a couple coordinators that work with our distance learning and our PD, but they work with the teachers. They go into the classrooms and help them. And during this time, they were working nonstop. When a parent had a problem, they called them and helped them. When a student was having a problem, they got online through video. They helped teachers constantly working with them and developing it. And I mean, there were times I had to say, you've got to take a day for yourself. You got to take care of yourself first so that you can, but they are phenomenal. And I believe that that's what makes us successful there. So we did a lot of professional development, and all our summer school except for our special needs students were online, and we began to plan constantly. And I don't know about other states, but in Texas, almost every day our superintendent and our future superintendent seemed like they were online with the commissioner as rules change. So we were developing best practices. I was working with teachers on coming up what did best practices look like in Deer Park for that. It didn't matter whether you're going to in person or remote. What were best practices, so that, because we wanted to come back not to what we normally did, but we wanted to be better than what we were. And we wanted to take the lessons learned so that we could be stronger, and our students could too. So we developed several alternative plans, working with the Department of Instruction and special ed, and just all of us, principals. We surveyed parents. I surveyed them in May. Again, I surveyed them in July about what they thought about what we provided in the summer or in the spring, and then what are their concerns about coming back in the fall. And so this is our list of best practices. First, most we know, and we based a lot of this on Hattie's work. We're very much research-based district, and we look at the research that has been provided by Hattie's group and looking at effect sizes and concentrating. If you're not familiar with that, I suggest you look at it. And we look at techniques and methods that teachers use, and research showing that if it's 0.4 or greater, because anything above 0.4 shows a year's growth. And if you're getting to 1, then that's almost 2 years growth. So we look at those, and sometimes if you combine them together, then that's even more effective. So we said, what's one of the most important things? Having that positive student relationship. And I love this. One of my teachers came in yesterday, and he teaches video production, and then he also works for us doing things. And he came in, and I said, how's it going? He said, well, you know, my upper level classes, we're just clicking. And he said, but you know, that my first year kids that I've had for the first time, they're really not doing what I'm asking. And we discussed how it's about the relationship. He had a relationship, or has a relationship, with the students he's had before, and these coming to him don't really know him, and they haven't built that relationship. So we spent a lot of time between the Department of Instruction and us talking about that is the first thing, that is utmost. So in the first few days of however we do this, build those student relationships. And then another big focus we've had this year is on teacher clarity. Making sure that we're setting good, clear expectations, we're communicating, and we're involving parents in it. Collaboration has been, oh my gosh, just such an aha as we're seeing in the fall, and we're coming back, and our teachers are here. They are not working from home. They were expected to be here. Now our students are still at home, but our teachers are here. And it's, we think, the best thing we could have ever done, because we're seeing that collaboration happen. It happened in the spring, but it's even stronger now because we are really pushing rigor. And, you know, we simplified things in the spring. Now we're looking at how can we provide rigor, but also making sure we're making connections. So you can see those. I won't go over all of them, but really discourse. How can we provide discourse in our learning management and in our lessons? How can we engage them, and what are some best practices? And we have all kinds of stories about how teachers did contests and how they involved them in just some problem solving around their home, just some great practices that were there. So how we prepared for the fall. We spent a lot of time developing logistics and communicating with parents, and then all of a sudden we'd get a new ruling from PEA, and so we'd have to adjust from that. If anything, in listening to what everybody said, even Dr. Rio says one of the things is flexible, be like Gumby. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, yes. I mean, because it was like, oh wait, now what do we do about this? We had a blended and remote learning administrator retreat, and that was really great to have them working in breakout rooms, but also working at a distance and looking at empathy and clarity. And so that was really a focus that we had. One of the things that came out, and we see that because then what administrators learned, they shared to teachers on down. And one of the words that came out is, you're pre-forgiven. Teachers need to know that they are pre-forgiven. We're all building the plane together, or building this boat together. So they're pre-forgiven. If they try something new and it fails, it's okay. What did you learn from it? How can I make it better? But and that's what we need to also give that to our students. We need to give them grace and let them know that they're pre-forgiven in this time that it's troubling, and whatever may be happening in their home, and they're scared about what the future, and are they, if when they do come back to school, just the whole COVID thing. So, oh, excuse me, my phone would go off. So then we spent a lot of time on teacher in August. We did the visible learning influences, Hattie's work on student success. I spent time that, and then looked at best practices and tools to help that blended or hybrid and remote learning. And we spent it on communication. We talked about communication. What are the tools for communicating? What are best practices with that? And then our course structure. One of the comments that came out from our parents is that they wanted to see commonalities. They wanted to see a common instruction across the campus, or that's because that was difficult for them to manipulate with their students. And then, of course, discourse and content. How do we engage students and asking the why questions and digging deep and not the regurgitation, bringing that rigor back. And then we made sure we built in lots of planning and development time. That's what they needed, time to work. And because it's hard, it is hard to teach. And it's, I believe, honestly, it's going to get harder. And we're honest with them about that. One of the great things that I got to participate when we did that in-service is that it was delivered on different campuses virtually. So they were in their classrooms, and we had taken our best teachers. We called them our teachers of innovation. And we had taken them to provide the delivery along with our campus technology integration specialists. And they're experts also in instruction. So that's what's, but they just love technology. That's why they're in that. One of the things I got to do is facilitate our high school, their professional development. Now there's almost 200 certified people, teachers that were doing this. So we broke them into 5 groups, and they were in 5 different rooms in Teams. Now, they had not used Teams much, but I sat in my office with 5 different devices around me, and I was helping them and calling them if they couldn't connect and doing that. And as I watched that, I watched them collaborate together, and I watched them problem solve. And at one point, I got a call from somebody on that campus, and they said, "It's falling apart." And I said, "No, it isn't. It's not. Just stay in there." I am seeing something that we always, and I get emotional about this, that we always want our teachers to do, is to collaborate and to help each other and to problem solve together. Because when that first day of school happens and they're online with them, I don't want them freaking out with the kids. It's okay if they freak out. In fact, some of our teachers cried, but it was one of those, if I could retire right now, it was one of those pinnacle moments to see that happen with that many people. It was just, anyway, I could go on, and I'll stop there. So we found additional opportunities over here in our department as we're preparing for the fall, that we still needed more chargers, and because we had them in carts and now they're going out, and more hotspots. That's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm working till 11 o'clock at night trying to get these out to parents and communicate with them, and still more devices. And then now we've got our high-level classes that an iPad won't suffice for, or a Chromebook, but we need good equipment that is that's strong and durable. So our computer science and our game programming and digital and video and CAD classes and photography. So we're still in the midst of trying to get all of that there. And again, that app that we had, now we have to find another and stronger guidelines for our video conferencing. Those students are boogers, and we're always, oh, look what this kid did. Now, how can you utilize, how can you work within that, speaking to them virtually, and just protect them and protect you. And then our training and directions for students. Our parents are still coming in here. We set up a more direct homework tutoring and what we call public tech support, because our community comes in. And then building all these dividers for our classrooms. How are we going to separate kids and protect them, and put, fitting our buildings, getting them ready. So here's how it started. Our students picked up their iPads and hotspots on the 15th, 17th, and 18th. And we had our Chamber of Commerce and our city council, they participated in it. And parents were bringing food and water, and just because it was a Saturday, and then it would be late during the day, and they were so appreciative of what we're doing. And all our teachers are working at school synchronous and asynchronous. We provide tech support from 7:30 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, Monday through Thursday. I have 2 high school students that actually work with us. They worked with us in the summer, and they're helping students too. They're here to take the calls and the emails and help them. And then we have this tutoring homework help that just went it. And then our grading and testing, we're still working that out, but we're still following guidelines. We have now come back in the fall as if you are in school. And so just so you know, I'll go back to here. Every school is they built their own schedule. And because all our schools are unique. And it was left up to the principal and their instructional team to kind of form that and see what's going to happen. Now, right now, or as of last week, we had 57% are planning to come back, and I'll talk about that phase in here. So they have now to change their mind. We are seeing a change. I don't know if it's having their kids at home again, and they're seeing that it's much more rigorous, and we forewarned them. We put out the message, communicated every way, that it's not going to be a couple of hours every day. It is going to be rigorous, and we're going to be contacting and doing partly online and synchronous and asynchronous at the same time. Some schools have a synchronous day for certain subjects and some a different schedule for the next day. So they're flipping back and forth. So it kind of gives the kids a break, the teachers a break also. So on Monday, our special needs SLC life skills students, they came back, and I just talked to the special ed director, and she said, well, they didn't have that many come back. It's a few, but it's exciting to see them. And then we're doing this phase in, so you can see what we have there. I won't go through all of it, but we're taking our lower grades, trying to get them used to school and procedures. And our 9th grade is a campus by itself, so they've been broken up into 4 groups. And we're seeing that it's probably going to be more of the upper level kids that are wanting to come back. And by September 16th, we will have all students that want to come back, whose parents let them, they will coming back. Not to a school like they had before, but one with a lot of distance. It will have, we have desks spread out and computer labs. I've had our service center put in these dividers between computers. Teachers have all kinds of cleaning. Our staff, the custodial staff, they're working more in the day than at night because they're constantly cleaning all the things that are going on. So this is our hybrid way, and we don't know how long. And we're also talking about, we want to be ready at the drop of the hat if we have to go back home. Right now, schools are setting their schedules, and they will have some teachers that will only do in person while some of them teach remote. Now, the real concern we have is that a lot of these teachers have built relationships with these students already, and they would like to continue that. So we have teachers doing both, and especially it's hard to do that in the high school. If you're a singleton teacher, then how do you manage that? In our hybrid classroom, the remote students, we're planning, how do you get them engaged in person with the other students? We've looked at equipment, videotaping or doing that Zoom in that big room, but you can get lost if it's not up close and personal. So we've been talking about then your remote students will be a little more asynchronous, and they might even be 1 to 2 days behind. And we're still working out the logistics, and you never really know how it's going to work many times until you get into it. But we're providing ample protective equipment, cleaning supplies, and just individual equipment, whether it's more laptops or whatever devices. Shipping is late. Fortunately, I got in on the early of it, so we pretty much have all our equipment in on that. So here's my words of wisdom to anybody. When you go into this process, number one, be ready to work. But it's one of those, I heard, I think Wasey talked this morning about it's been invigorating, and I think Dr. Rios, he talked about how hard how he was working so much. And yes, I am. And thank goodness I have a wonderful husband that is understanding. If I don't show up at home by 11:30, then he starts to call. But it's been invigorating. It's been hard. It's been sometimes frustrating. But some of my words are, you can have a lot of processes and procedures, and we really do. I've got some people that really are good about the logistics, and our planning is just excellent in how we execute it. And it's a team. We work as a team. We are a team. And I've seen my technology group has always been a good team. I feed them a lot, but working with our instructional group, our special ed, and they're so appreciative of us. In fact, today our special ed group served us Chick-fil-A, as thank you for working with them. And then, I gave you that word pre-forgiven. Be willing to restart and regroup. When you fall short and it doesn't work, regroup. Okay, we're all doing that. And then communication, just regularly and often, constantly let them know, hey, I ran into a roadblock. This is what we're going to do. And communication has been key because of all the different changes and the rulings that are happening there. So that's kind of it. I don't have any schedules to show. I know everybody else was showing schedules because actually each campus is doing their own thing, and they're regrouping and looking. And as we see, we'll know a little bit better after Friday, and parents have changed their mind, and we're seeing that trend of they are moving to more in person. Then we will be looking at what is then that schedule look like, and who will be maybe a remote. And I've been talking to principals about, don't put somebody remote just because they say they like it, or we really need good teachers. Well, we need good teachers on everything, but we need teachers that understand it's harder, and understand that, and they are diligent about getting to those students and making sure they're connecting with them. So I guess I'm right at 30 minutes of talking, I think, and even though I'm 3 minutes early. So any questions?
Yeah, this was awesome. This is Leilani Cawthon sharing. I probably should put on my webcam so I can be with you here. Share my webcam. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. Hey, from California to Texas. So good to have you with us. We miss being in person. We miss being able to see your happy face and all the other Texans down there around the South. It's funny. We were looking at some pictures the other day of when we got to be on the road all the time, and we miss people. I'm sure that's been the experience for a lot of educators, and still is in a lot of our states that are shut down, not allowed to go back in yet, like here in California. What I'm curious about for you guys in Deer Park, because I just did this whole thing on hybrid logistics. What are you feeling are the issues that you're hitting with regards to how things work? The baseline is this is the way it's been done before, and now you're doing an alteration. Do you feel like you're in the middle of a mutation, and that maybe there's something needed? Have you kind of started to think about that?
Can you elaborate whenever you mean something needed?
Well, just in terms of the structure, like, because you have a model and then there's, the teachers are doing their thing. If you were envisioning something that would be able to manage time and the use of space a little bit easier, has that occurred to you? That's what I'm asking, because obviously the hardest part in all of this is the logistics.
Yes.
And that's where people sort of melt down. That's, they go into these Zoom meetings, like you were just saying, you had teachers cry going into this. They go in already so tense because the background is this overwhelming shift to complexity having to do with space use and time, which throws off all of your senses, right? It throws off everything. And then you're like, you're told you got to hunker down and like focus on this, right? Yeah. And then you're like, this darn thing doesn't work. I can't, well, how do I share again? And you just ratchet up, right? You just keep ratcheting up because underneath is all that other stress, right? Yeah. It has nothing to do with not being able to make Zoom work, right? Really. Right. We should be, we calmly get on here. I'm like, today, I can't make this video work. It's tried everything, and so instead of being frustrated, I'm like, whatever, we'll figure this out later, because, I'm not in the thing you're in, you're in the thing of all space and time. It's just like you're in a new dimension.
Yes.
So what I'm asking really is related to that, right? The model.
Yes, and that's why I was talking about what happened as I watched their stress go up, and and then the first day of school happened, and they breathed. That's all we needed to do was start school, and they breathed, and it generally worked. And if it didn't, we were there to help them make it work. But the first day afterwards, they went, okay, that wasn't so bad. And at this high school that has 2,800 kids, their principal in the first 2 weeks wants them to connect with kids in every period, because the kids are following their schedule, connect with them for 10 minutes, and then get off just to do some connectivity and build the relationship. Basically get off, but be there for direction and coaching and that kind of thing, and then just do like a closure. So the kids don't have to stay on all the time, because one of the frustrations we're finding is it doesn't matter how good your home Wi-Fi is, it's never good enough. It's not enough. So, so yeah, it's them learning how to manage that time. And now now our next concern that we're going to work through once we have some numbers is how do I work with remote and in person at the same time? So, so I was listening to the models you were providing and some of the things they're doing, so that I can speak into that and share with them. Yeah, it's going to be hard. And what we may think work is not, so give yourself grace. And like I said, that word forgiven is, people are putting it on sticky notes, and in their Zoom conference are sticking it up like, okay, I'm forgiven. I need to remember that. And then they laugh. And so we've been talking about self-talk. And then we have wonderful counselors and counseling group that are providing not only for parents, but for teachers, different modules and different, how do I cope during this time? How do parents cope? And we're putting that within our LMS, or putting resources on our website, and parents are actually going to it. And we're advertising it through our Twitter and our Facebook, and they're going to, how do I cope with my kid who's having trouble coping this? And how, you know, so I don't know that I answered your question. I hope so, but
Well, I think, you know, it's funny because I've asked the same sort of similar thing in some of the Learning Council's past webinars, and we've done a lot of research in this area, right? And in a second here, I'm going to try to find some people that are attendees and have them share kind of their comments. Maybe they don't have a question, but we can ask them to comment. Where are they from? But so people that are listening in, get ready for that. I might call on you. But the thing about asking about models is kind of like asking you to experience living on Mars when you've only lived on Earth.
Yeah.
And so I realize it's an impossible question. Because the world of education right now it's been structured for the brick and mortar buildings, and then it tried to mutate to be remote of a brick and mortar building, and that sort of crashed and burned all over the place.
Yeah.
But here's the real kicker. Now it's got to be both. You know, I mean, really, it's kind of like, really, people should run screaming into the woods, right? It's like, this is impossible, right? So you're asking for a miracle. I just think what I'm communicating here for you to think about with your team is that technology should carry a heavier load in terms of logistics. It should take work off the back of the teacher. Mm-hmm. So that's really a culture shift that I'm asking you to start thinking about with all of your people is, what would they want technology to do for them? Because it's not just a pedagogical tool, it's a logistics tool. UPS uses logistics to the nth level.
Yeah.
Some FedEx, remember when FedEx, this is years ago, started getting packages overnight anywhere in the world in 24 hours? What is that like? It's like somebody's got to ship it, it's got to arrive here, it's got to get on the right plane, get on the right truck, and go to another plane, get to another continent, right? Wow. What if we could have that level of logistics for students? Get to the right teacher at the right time, go over to this room, now come back over here, now do this over here, now write that assignment, now read this thing over here. Da, da, da. What if that was possible? That's what I'm grappling with. And the Edu Jedi, some of the advanced thinkers that, you know, I've run into, across all of these districts are grappling with this. But it would be like suddenly, Dr. Murphy, your teacher's thinking with, I'm going to let go some of these things of running time and running blah, blah, and I'm going to narrow in like a surgeon on brain surgery, or a surgeon's, narrows in on, handling kidney stuff.
Yeah.
That's a new line of thinking, but you're getting forced into it now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we're constantly looking over here, and I say over here because we're in a separate building, of how can we make it seamless. My BHAG is that it is simplest, that technology is seamless, that you don't see it working in the background and you can do what you need to do. And it's always been my BHAG. And I had a superintendent about a couple of way back, and when something didn't work, he'd look at me and go, seamless, huh? And so he made me a paperweight, and it sits on my desk. I made the mistake of telling him that's my BHAG. And I said, I am constantly looking at how can I provide the support? What tools can I use? That it's all about the instruction, and it's not about the technology. That teachers can go into that. And so we're constantly looking at what can we automate? What can we the kids show up in their groups and teams, and they just click and make a meeting, or they in their learning management system, so they don't have to worry about that stuff. That, like you said, we built a schedule for the kids, and now they're in where they're supposed to be. So I think about how far we've come. I've been in this business so long, and I think about we've come a long way, but we still have a lot to get things more automated, and like you said, get those logistics done and out of the way. So they're not worrying about it. They're worrying about what they are called to do, and that is to teach.
Yeah, and so so there's these things about software doing some of that for you. That's sort of the dividing line where teachers start to freak out a little bit, because they want to do everything with Zoom. It's like they're just going to transfer the classroom. But the asynchronous is like, it makes people a little nervous because they're not eyeballing you. They're not watching you. So when, Mind Research shared their math software, it's so much above, sort of the design of it, the neuroscience behind it is so far different than normal teachers will teach. It's like they're the source of math. Now the software is being the source of math instruction, and teachers are a little like, what? But they're getting forced into that line of thinking because they can't Zoom all day.
Right.
And and we haven't, we've had superintendents say, my gosh, we had like Zoom meetings over the top of Zoom meetings, and kids could only attend one and not the other one. And so they, it's like, it was messy. So it's that letting go-ness and rediscovering teaching as a different sort of thing. It's not being the source of all knowledge. It's being the guide on the side, the coach.
Yes.
Hey, are you struggling with this? Come over here. Let's have a personal Zoom meeting. Right? Let's fix that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's breaking up in those small groups because you're going to be more effective. And we're actually now utilizing our instructional aids that they are taking, helping our teachers, and they're breaking up in groups to help those that are struggling or to be the back end source of that. One of the things that triggered my brain, what you said, is a lot of what I've been saying to teachers is, when we come back, you cannot do a 45-minute lecture. You cannot videotape yourself and then drop that into a Canvas and say, here's my thing. I wouldn't listen to you more than 5 minutes. So I'm sure kids are going to listen. So you've got to you got to chunk it. You got to look at how you can reach them and not be, like you said, the know-it-all, the sage on the stage. You've got to be the guide on the side. And so I see that rethinking happening. I'm hearing conversations and being involved with those of, well, that's great, but how can I do it? And so together, that collaboration is happening to figure that out.
Yeah, which is awesome. Let me see if I can call on somebody here to share kind of what's happening with them so far. I'm gonna look for somebody in our list. Let me see, we got Lourdes Plunkett. Okay, maybe she's not on right now. Lourdes, if you're there, you can unmute. I'm gonna try someone else. Jamie Swinford, if you're there, I'm unmute. I unmuted you, so you could make a comment or share if you want to unmute yourself. And Evelia Segura, you're unmuted. You have to undo your self mute. And Camille Ozerser, I hope I didn't crucify your name. You're unmuted. So if you want to share, you can share. And anybody that's on the call right now, if you're getting ready for the next event after we get done with this discussion, there are a couple of handouts in your handout panel. You can download the dictionary, but especially the agenda, because in the agenda are the 2 assessments for motivation that you could make sure that you're aware of. So if any of you guys want to speak up, please do. There's quite a few people in here. I'm going to unmute. Troy Seafelt. Troy, do you have a question you want to ask? And then W.C. Hayes.
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hearing we're a value add reseller, and one of the things that we continue to hear from educators is what schools are utilizing to observe mental behavior, being that a lot of surveys are being said that suicide rates or suicide tendencies or searches on the web are escalating just due to the fact that children are in self-isolation. What are your schools doing to help monitor social health?
Well, you want me to answer, or do you want some of the other people to answer?
I'm open to whomever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a very, we've been using anonymous alerts, and it has been very effective. And we don't see as much participation right now, but we do in the normal school year, and we did last spring. And we've been, about 4 years ago, we had 7 children. There were deaths. 4 of them were suicide. And we have not had one since then because we've been able to monitor it and catch them. And our counseling staff is phenomenal. And they've been, they're very aware and very concerned about this. So they're constantly checking with students and checking on them through meeting with them and like in smaller groups, doing that kind of thing with them and providing different modules, and also parents, reaching out to parents. And in fact, we just had a parent tell us that she is using some of the techniques that she's seeing because her child is being more vocal and violent and just some of the things. And so she's using those techniques, and it's really helping and working with them. So we're trying to empower that. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. So WC from Achieve was asking, what level are you guys letting decisions be made? Are you letting teachers make decision on curriculum software, or those school level, district level? How is that working for you?
Normally it comes out of, like, if a teacher is seeing something, then they'll bring it forward with their principal, and then it just kind of rises up. It comes both ways, and
Okay.
then but we look to see if it's in alignment with what our TEKS, or also with what our curriculum. They make, if it's any kind of curriculum, they make the final decision on whether it is. I just look at, as it comes through our system, and we have a process for it, then I look at whether we can handle it, if we can manage it, and if we have the bandwidth or whatever it is to be able to push it out and utilize it.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, so kind of all over the place. That's the same thing we were hearing from Oregon. You know, as the CARES Act money came in, there was a tremendous number of districts that were looking at, you know, we got to move quickly. And when we worked with State of Oregon to do their event, sort of similar to this one, a little bit different format, they actually said, you know, we've got money and we just got tons of machines. They had only one district that was fully one-to-one, but then everybody was going to be one-to-one with machines for every kid come fall. So they were in a mad scramble. So they were letting the decisions just sort of, anybody who wants to pile on can pile on and tell us what they want to do. And if they can get something for free temporarily so people can start using it and they feel a need for it, it works, then yes, there's money to buy a bunch of stuff. How are you guys set up? Have you seen your CARES Act money come in yet?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Different places are responding to that differently. Different people are saying, you know, the state kept all my money. You know, he didn't let us have it all. Darn them. Blah blah blah. You know,
yeah. Well, what's happened with us is that Texas has worked it out. Like, if you needed to buy some devices, additional ones, and I have some older ones, so I was able to buy like another 3,000 iPads and 200 hotspots. I should have got more. So you had a window that you could ask for. They paid for half and we paid for half.
That's good.
But then now our county is coming in and saying, okay, we will pay half of what you paid. And because we're matching it, then the state's going to match it also. And then also I just did a webinar this morning about getting reimbursement for some things that I bought earlier in the summer. So that's the way we're seeing it. That's the way Texas handled it. In that way.
Okay. Yeah. So different sort of situation. Okay. So now you're in the middle of this change management. What do you see happening in the fall and going into next year?
I see growth on our teachers. We also are planning we're heading strong in person, then all of a sudden we've got to stop. Yesterday it was reported in a neighboring district, the one I live in, that they already had 2 cases and they started doing their phase in on Monday. So we've got plans that if something happens at a school and they have to quarantine or they have to go home, how are we doing that? What are we going to do that will be different? Or what will we need to do? Or hopefully we're already in that mode and the expectation is you're going to stay using your learning management system and you're going to be utilizing tools, the tools needed so that when they go home, it just flows. So what do I see? I see a lot of up and down, in and out. I see greater demands for more hotspots because of the shared internet. I don't care, whatever you buy, you're still sharing it with somebody. And so those are the things that I see. But I also see teachers realizing that maybe some of the ways the traditional ways they taught, they're not working. And so now I can be a better teacher because I'm looking at following best practices, and I am utilizing appropriate tools and letting them have discovery learning, more discovery learning.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that's something I will comment on, the whole discovery learning piece. You know, Z-Space talked a lot about, you know, like kids get into their AR, VR, and they have this experience that, you know, that's sort of guided with some of the lesson plans. But I think it's a technology where you're like, you're playing with it. Now, there are a lot of companies actually in the consumer space, and this is what happened a lot over the summer, is consumer companies are offering sort of like their libraries. And then it's sort of like Socratic question the kids, go figure out history, you know, and they can just let them wander around and sort of pick a theme. And it's a totally different arena now in terms of that asynchronous, almost unguided kind of stuff that you can do. And you know, the online schools are also been so kind over the summer. If you've been hitting the social media sites, sharing lessons, you know, like how to do laundry, you know, at home, and science experiments with the laundry, and you know, like things you know, things you wouldn't have thought of on the campus that you could have people do at home. Yeah, things in the yard, like, you know, you can use those apps that take a picture of a plant and tell you the genus and the plant and how to take care of the plant. And there's a ton of things. There's even a app now out that tracks bats that you might have in your city, you know, which is kind of fascinating. I don't know if you want your kids running around in the city right now, you know, tracking bats in the middle of the night, but you know, there's a ton of just really interesting things that can be done. I'm so happy that you have sort of a mindset, and you must have a lot more there in your district, of yourself discovering this new world, and you're treating it like a new, interesting world. You know, how am I going to enjoy this, right? Massive change that's freaking everybody out. And just sort of look at it with wonder, like we just went to Disneyland. That's an attitude, right? That's a really positive attitude. And I want to, you know, share that with everyone, you know, that's really the attitude we all need to have right now. Like, we've just entered Wonderland, and we should look at it that way rather than look at like, oh, poor us, you know, we're all, this is so horrible, right? Yeah, I love that.
Fortunately, we're very blessed, and our teachers understand that. And we just, you know, it didn't happen overnight. That's what I'll say. It didn't happen overnight, and it's been a process in getting through. And I think you have to understand that hopefully you're going to go from this and not just go into this of now we're in the technology world. When we get to go to brick and mortar, we're going to drop it all. We want it to, you know, just pick up the momentum of that and go with it. One of the things that I'm hoping, you asked what I hope to see come out of this, I am hoping that our state changes the way they test. If we could go more to portfolio or encourage project-based and not those tests, I'm going to stay kind here, then I think we've really made a milestone. And at one time, our superintendent, our commissioner talked about, when he first came in, about doing all the testing online, but looking at doing through portfolio and providing alternative assessments. And I'm like, please let us do that. Get away from, you know, the bubbles and, you know, all that kind of thing. And
all the high stakes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's coming. It's not going to be fast, because the state people giving tons of money out, they want accountability. They're getting, you know, pitchforks at their door, you know, like, hey, what are you doing for the kids, you know? Right. So, okay, well, this has been super awesome, Carrie.
Thank you.
Dr. Murphy. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to end off with this particular session and say thanks. Hopefully you stay on through this next part, because we're going to have Cheryl Abshire shares something we think is momentous and fantastic.
She's
But I'm gonna.
awesome. She's always awesome. My
I
friend.
know, love her to death. So cool.
Hello, my name is Horacio Choa, and I am the head of marketing at Bloomz, the mobile and web app helping thousands of schools communicate better with parents, students, and other staff. Today, I want to share with you a quick story about learning and growth. As you know, the coronavirus pandemic hit hard on all schools around the country, causing school closures and many empty seats. In the first few weeks, we opened up our premium platform to any school who needed it, and we received a huge response. Through the process, we learned a lot, like how many schools didn't have a communication solution prior to the pandemic, but more importantly, our need for a strong backend infrastructure. Thanks to our engineering team, though, we were able to respond with great improvements on stability and scalability. We also learned how much teachers needed a complete solution for remote learning. And we've turned that into a major overhaul to our platform and a new feature called assignments. Finally, we learned about an ongoing need for health screenings of students and staff to help monitor and track symptoms according to CDC guidelines. This is now also possible within Bloomz. If you, like many other administrators, learn that your school or district needs a solid communication platform, particularly in these times of distance learning, then I invite you to watch this video with me to learn why you need to consolidate all communication into one platform. Thank you very much for having us.
Are you one of those school or district administrators using many of the so-called free apps to communicate with students, parents, and staff? Truth is, these apps are not always free. They all offer you basic functionality for free and charge for more useful upgraded features. Then, as you grow more dependent on these apps, you'll find yourself in the future needing to upgrade to multiple services, so you're only postponing a bigger burden on your budget. Carrying multiple apps at your school causes inefficiencies from teachers switching from one app to the other. Meanwhile, parents are confused and disengaged because of the many sources of information. Plus, with every new app come new security and privacy risks. There is, however, an all-in-one solution for you. It's called Bloomz. Bloomz reduces the amount of apps school and district administrators need to communicate with parents, students, and staff within their schools or between them. It gives principals peace of mind by concentrating all parent and student information in one single, compliant, and safe platform. Bloomz improves parental engagement by giving parents one single source for all information, including school announcements, calendar of events, student reports, emergency alerts, and more. So, if you're using different apps to communicate with your staff, students, and parents, now you can streamline the process while increasing engagement and security. Sign up for a free consultation today at bloomz.com/schools.